85 expected goal involvements, and 130 FPL goals and assists. Like that's insane. He's just been so consistent over the past couple seasons, and the fixtures that he has coming up are wonderful. Palace, Aston Villa, and Ipswich are great. In fact, I think in Game Week 11, he seems like the main standout captain, at least from my perspective. And even in Game Week 12, where they're playing against Man City, City have been very poor defensively because they've lost Rodri. Then they also have Chelsea in there. They have Southampton in there. Fulham is a more difficult fixture. I don't think it's a green fixture. That's more of like a gray fixture to me. But overall, Son is just such a great player. And because he's in Europa League, I think his minutes in the Premier League will be very strong, right? What do you guys think of Son?
I think he's someone of mine for game week 10. I think Villa's a good entry point based on the high line that they deploy. I'm looking to go back to my no Haaland structure. So I think Son is essential for me in that sense because he's a genuine captaincy shout in 11 and 16. So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to go no Haaland, you need to make sure that you've got captaincy sorted. So he's a great option for the upcoming game weeks. Even City, Chelsea, I think they're great fixtures.
Yeah, what do you think, Heyman?
I think it's actually insane the fact that a player of this caliber that managed to score over 250 GAs in the time that he's been in the Premier League, and not win any trophy. I think that's kind of hilarious. But obviously, that's not only him; it's the club that he plays for. Ultimately, no shots taken, right? But look, he's an exceptionally talented player. Arguably one of the best wingers we've ever seen in the Premier League. Could be top 10 all time. Look, ultimately, anytime you pick this guy, you can expect a big return. Now that Kane is not there, he's their talisman. So if you were to go for him over the likes of Salah, Palmer, Saka, I wouldn't blame you, to be honest.
Yeah, and if we look at his data in terms of FPL points per start, he wasn't on penalties during these years. So that would have been an extra couple of goals he would have been adding to his bow, and he's on pens now, right? And in previous years, he's been playing under Mourinho, Conte, very defensive coaches where they're just not creating enough XG as a team, at least from the way that I would be watching the games. It'd usually be like a Kane ball in behind, Son getting goals on the counter attack, but with Postecoglou's system, they're just playing more attacking football, which will just lead to more chances for Heung-min Son. So I feel like he's just one of the best defenders in the game. And honestly, with him being, priced at 10.0, I think it's a fair price. And if you're able to include him in a captaincy matrix, I think that's where you can really get the value from owning somebody like him. And in fact, I actually have a question to ask you guys. Like, who do you think is the best finisher in the Premier League?
We'll get to that. If we look at this graph, I think this should tell us a lot, actually, Kanji. I would let you start with explaining this graph because I know you've come up with this data. So, yes.
Yeah. So I actually took this chart from FPL Script, and on the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, you'll see the non-penalty expected goals of a player that they've accumulated over the course of their career. So further you are to the right, that means the more chances you've had to score. And on the vertical axis, which is going to be the y-axis, that's going to be the non-pen goals minus the non-pen expected goals. So the higher you are to the top right of the graph, the better you are as a finisher. And surprisingly, Heung-min Son, according to the data, over the course of his career, is actually a better finisher than Erling Haaland. Isn't that nuts? What do you guys think of that?
It doesn't surprise me. You watch him, he's competent on either foot. And that's a rare trait to have, and that's why he's so difficult to mark. Carl Walker quote, I believe, was given Son his prop, saying that if he's in the box 1-on-1, you're pretty much toast because he can go either way, either finish. He's just got it on lock. So it doesn't, in my opinion, when it comes to finishing, the best finisher for me is just look at like from the data perspective, who's finishing more often than not. And so if it tells me that Son's finishing more chances than Haaland, then for me, surely Son's the better finisher because Haaland's obviously getting a higher volume of chances, right?
Yeah, but the question is like, is football played on spreadsheets or is it played on grass?
No,
What do
it's
you think, Cayman?
played on grass.
I think you brought up a really good point is that as much as we want to look at this data and say that Heung-min Son seems to be on top in terms of analytics and finishing wise, if you look at one interesting stat, the big chances conversion rate for Heung-min Son is actually 42%. I actually looked this up. I couldn't put this up in the graph because I didn't have enough time. But for Haaland, on the other hand, his big chance conversion rate is 70%. So I understand the reason being because he's a clinical striker and we're comparing a winger ultimately. But for Son to a 42% is quite impressive. Another thing to note is Haaland doesn't create his chances. He gets more volume chances due to the fact that his teammates provides for him, whereas Son, he has to create his own shot. So in terms of difficulty for creating a chance, your own chance and scoring it, I would give the edge to Son. And in terms of talent overall as a player, I would definitely pick Son over Haaland. But in terms of just purely finishing in multiple various ways, headers, volleys, not free kicks, but say outside the box shots, in the box, pretty much all around his positioning, I would have to give it to Haaland, guys, ultimately. And this guy, I mean, to start the season, he's got 10 goals in what, less than 6 games? So in terms of
Mm.
finishing and due to the clinical, due to him being clinical, I would say it's Haaland in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think Holland probably has a stronger variety of finishes, but I still think Son is a better finisher. I just think that it's like Son also has that like 5-star weak foot. He can go left and go right. That's what makes him so unpredictable. With Holland, you know, he's usually trying to get onto that left foot. But either way, I still think that like both of them are elite finishers, and for them to be in this conversation in the sort of ilk of like Lionel Messi just shows you how great of players that they are, and it's just a value difference. You know, Holland's priced at 15.0 and he's a slightly worse finisher than Son. But of course, if we're looking at it from the amount of XG accumulated, Holland is going to have a lot more chances created for him because he's playing with better players, probably under a better coach as well. But then, you know, he's priced more expensive and he's a striker, whereas Son is a mid. So that's just what makes this such an interesting debate. And that's why I just feel like he's just one of the best differentials. You know, if we go back to the previous slide and we look at the fixtures, you can just see that they have like Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Ipswich. Man City's a good fixture for Son. Like Chelsea is a good fixture for Son. Even after this, in Gameweek 17, they play Liverpool, and Son always scores versus Liverpool. It's unbelievable how consistent his record is against them. So I think that like fixtures don't really matter too much for a player like Son, relative to players like Bukayo Saka and Cole Palmer, where I feel like they usually pick up more returns against the easier teams. Son isn't really in that same ilk. I look at him as like he's completely fixture proof. He can return in easy games and in big games. So I think he's one of the best differentials. Really glad that we touched on him. And so why don't we move into the first game of the game week? And that's actually going to be the Spurs and West Ham game. Now, this was a very nice, comfortable win for Spurs. Surprisingly comfortable because when we watched the last couple of matches, you know, they had some topsy-turvy, you know, situations in those matches where they played against Brighton where they were dominating, but then in the second half, they kind of just lost control of the game, and Brighton ended up winning the game 3-2. Now, Son came back, and you're dropping Werner, and the difference between them is absolutely dramatic. Like, it must be one of the biggest drop-offs in the entire Premier League in any position. And it was a very comfortable win. And I think what I'm noticing in this match is that Spurs' attacking system is very similar to the way that the prime Liverpool system was, with Firmino, Salah, and Mane. And it's not in terms of the quality of players. I can't be comparing Firmino to Solanke and Salah to Son. It's not really fair to the Liverpool players, really. It's a little bit disrespectful. But it's the system and the positions that the players are getting themselves into. What I'm noticing is that Solanke sort of dropping into that center forward and center attacking mid position, and Son and Brennan are just sort of running it behind. And so, like, if we compare it from previous seasons, it's just going to show you that the likes of Brennan Johnson and Heung-min Son are going to be the ones that are getting a lot of the XG. And, you know, when Liverpool were in their prime, we usually wanted to bring in Sadio Mane or Mo Salah into our FPL squads. And so I'm just curious to know what you guys think in terms of that analysis from a tactical perspective and, like, what your guys' thoughts were on this match.
I'd say it's definitely been a trend in the last two games, especially versus Brighton and obviously last week against West Ham. But I feel like in those two fixtures, there is a lot of space to exploit. So it would obviously suit the likes of Son and Johnson. I think Kulusevski and like to go on to the midfield between Kulusevski and Maddison, that double 8/10 pivot, I would be concerned as a Maddison owner, which I am. Spoiler alert, I transferred him out early for Mbumo because I don't want the headache, and I just admitted that my wrong and rectified that. Sarr came on in that second half. He literally assisted Son's goal and won the ball back and gave them so much energy. He gave them a new dynamic in midfield, which prevented West Ham's transition. They've got a lot of explosive pace with Kudus and Bowen. So I think moving forwards, it's very worrying that Sarr comes on, has that impact. And in the last game, he didn't come on and they bottled the 2-0 lead against Brighton. So it's almost like proof is in the pudding. And I'd be very concerned if he moves forward with a Sarr, Bissouma and Kulusevski's flying. I mean, he is playing unbelievable. Just eye test alone, he's an impressive footballer and he's relishing his new role. So, and what I would say is to maybe be ahead of the curve, if he does proceed to bring back Sarr and Basuma, maybe Pedro Porro is an option again because he'll be more advanced and he'll be on more corners, so and more set pieces. So just one to watch out for.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point, especially if Madison's minutes are not nailed and Poro's going to be the one on the set pieces. Yeah, that's a really good point. Kima, do you have any input onto this match?
I think you guys covered pretty much everything. One thing I do want to give a shout out is that on this podcast we did say that listen, Kulu and Madison are the picks to watch out for, and ultimately Madison had an assist and Kulu did have a goal, so we were in head of the curve in that sense. But in regards to Madison being dropped out of favor, I don't think it will happen. I think it was just a tactical change due to the game and the scenario. I don't see Saar being a better player than Madison. I rate Madison extremely highly, and I think he's still an FPL pick. But we'll see if he gets the minutes or not. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, like the most important thing to me is just X minutes. And if there's a question mark there, I'm just gonna have to sell. So I really back that decision by you Stark to get rid of him and going to one of the most essential picks in the game in Mbumo. There's a controversial moment in this match that I wanted to touch on. Is that there was like the shot from Heung-min Son. I think this was like the after the second or third goal. It was like he shot it from the right wing. Usually Son's on the left wing, but he was on the right hand side for this at this moment in time. Shoots it, goes off the goalie, goes off the defender, back off the goalie, and goes in. And they gave the assist to Son, but then they rectified it later on before the game week ended because they changed the rules where they're allowed to change the BPS before the game week ends. So I'm really glad they got the decision right. But it was weird to see like they gave the assist initially. But what are your guys' thoughts on how that worked out?
Don't get me started on the FPL cartel, the most trending topic on X. I just think they got an incorrect decision and they've rectified it. So let's move on. They've been rectifying a lot of decisions this year. They've done well. So let's not overreact. No more opinions for me on the FPL cartel or the Sun decision.
I do want to add something to the Sun decision. I think ultimately it wasn't his assist because it hit Areola and then he had another defender. It hit basically three different people before the ball went into the back of the net. There is no way that's a Sun assist. I'm so glad that they actually rectified it because I was leading the whole campaign on X. If you guys were active or following me on X, I was saying remove that assist now to protect the integrity of the game. I was seriously considering whether to delete the app or not if they were to give that assist to Son. And last point in regards to Kulu, I do want to mention that his new role does make him in the pecking order number one in terms of priority transfers. Considering his price at 6.2, I'd say he's a better option than Johnson at this moment in time. I understand Johnson is getting the bulk of the chances, but in terms of flair, in terms of just aesthetically overall, like he's impressed the manager. And now you can see Madison is being benched because Kulu wants to play the new 10 role. He wants to come from the wing into the middle, right? So I would say ultimately make sure, if you are getting any Spurs attacker, prioritize Kulu over the likes of Johnson. And another one I didn't touch on, Solanke. Solanke is a CDM, by the way. He's not a striker, so don't pick him. And I'll hold. He can hold on. He can hold me. He can hold me onto that as well. So stuttering.
Yeah. Those are really fair points. I disagree on the Kulu being a better pick than Johnson, but I mean,
But
for
yeah.
value, I think he's probably the better value pick. Brennan does get a lot of XG, but either way, we'll move on to the next match. I think that's enough about Spurs, man. Like, sometimes we just get Spursy when we spend too much long talking about Tottenham. So we'll move on to another surprisingly underwhelming team in Manchester United, but they went out there and they had a very solid performance this week. Hey, man, what are your thoughts on your club?
United. We're back, baby. No, I'm just trolling. We're not back. We're not back, man. Look, these players, bro, they somehow save this guy's job again and again. I don't know. In terms of should I be happy or sad, I have mixed emotions. I'm glad we won. I'm happy in terms of look, things are looking promising now. If we keep beating these bottom feeders, maybe there is a chance for top four. Maybe, just maybe, consistently we have to beat them though. But is this something that I want for my club in the long run? No, because I do want to be competing for Champions League as well as the Premier League. But look, the standards have lowered now. Beggars can't be choosers. Ultimately, I gotta take these small wins and be happy about it. I gotta stop being pessimistic. I have been called out by quite a few of my friends, So I would say, look, overall happy. Let's hope that we'll keep racking up these wins. In terms of FPL point of view, Garnacho is the number one pick. I've always said it. If you ever wanted a United player, I don't know why you would though, but I'd say Garnacho number one. Haaland, he did have a really good finish, but I still need to see more from him if I were to go for him. And Bruno, he's still a no-go for me. I understand he's going to assist, but he's playing a deeper role. In terms of our defense, I think we are unfortunate to concede. We do look quite promising in the defense, so you could look to target the likes of Onana. because we do have good fixtures coming up. But yeah, overall impressed with the win, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, Stark, you've always had your eye on Garnacho, right? So then now the fixtures are there. Are you tempted to move that way yourself, or is that just like you prefer like other transfers, other priorities, or what are you thinking?
I don't have the luxury of bringing him in, but if I did have that luxury, I'd bring him in a heartbeat. I think 8 shots in one game. I My stocks in Garnacho are a lot higher when he's playing off the left and cutting in on his right foot, and I was very pleased to see him playing left wing. And I found it very intriguing that he actually played Rashford on the right for the whole game. So if he's playing Garnacho left wing and Garnacho's consistently getting these 90 minutes, I think he's a great option at 6.2 million. And if you just look at him, he's so direct. He loves shooting. Even last season, averaging over 2 shots a game for the whole season. The volume's there. I think he's a talented player. I think he's a bright spark in that United team. I don't think Ten Hag's going to get sacked, and I think he's Ten Hag's golden boy. So I can see him getting the minutes. The fixtures are great. It was between him and Mbumo, and ultimately I just went Mbumo because I just felt like it was the right decision. Although I did want Garnacho, but I just went with the solid option, really.
Yeah, I mean it's apples and oranges really. And Bumo's just like a level above. But maybe for value, Garnacho could match him over the next couple of weeks. Like the fixtures are so great. So, but if you go to Mbumo, you're sort of locking yourself in longer term. So I think that's probably the better move anyway. But yeah, I think Garnacho is very tempting, even for me, because I have somebody like Brennan Johnson, and maybe I can move to him from I can move to Garnacho from him. But I think Brennan's fixture is too good for me to consider that really. But I
Yeah,
think that's enough analysis on Manchester United. Let's move on to the Arsenal and Bournemouth game. Now, this match was pretty surprising, but Arsenal went out there again. Another red card. That's 3 in 8 games. Bro, what are Arsenal doing? Like, did you guys watch this match? Like, I cannot believe they lost this game.
yeah, I watched this match, and that decision by Saliba was just so bad, such a poor decision. If you look at the City game, I can't remember who he let through on goal. I think it might have been Semedo, but he just followed him, put him under pressure. Ederson came out, and they saved it. So he should have put more faith in Raya. Ultimately, if you go 1-0 down, you should back yourself as a team to overcome the result as well, especially if you're going to go for the league. You shouldn't be taking a man out, last man, and even putting yourself in a position to get a red card, whether you believe it's unfortunate or not. So shocking from them. I'm worried as a double Arsenal defence owner. Um, it's not looking good, Brev. It's not. It's not. I think
It's not, bro.
the focus on Bournemouth, though, I think people are looking to sell Semenyo, which I think's a bit crazy. The fixtures are great post game week 11. And I think for this Villa game, I'm actually choosing to start Semenyo ahead of Rodgers. I just think they'll have a lot of confidence. Rodgers just played 90 minutes as well. And I just think Bournemouth might be able to shock Aston Villa in this next game. And I think they're playing well. So just it's a waste of a transfer, in my opinion.
Wow, that's a tight 50-50. I mean, isn't Rodgers at home?
He is, but I just think Semenyo's going to exploit the space and behind. And I think Semenyo had a good game against Arsenal. He just didn't put the ball in the back of the net, but he was getting in good positions.
Yeah, he also scored against Liverpool, but it was offside. And I know the fixtures, it looks a little bit scary on paper against Aston Villa and Man City in the next 2 weeks, but Man City have been very poor defensively. Aston Villa played this ridiculously high line. So, I mean, Semenyo is just going to take over. And like, if you sort of look from game weeks 11 to game weeks 30, Bournemouth's fixtures are incredible. So I think people that are selling Semenyo, it's a little bit short-sighted in my opinion. But yeah, just another underwhelming Arsenal performance. Defensively, they're a joke. They didn't have Odegaard. They didn't have Saka in this game as well. So just a
Can I touch on
weird,
that? Can
weird
I touch on that
performance.
Saka
Yeah,
thing,
of
please?
course.
First of all, this is a message to Arteta and anyone that's an Arsenal fan. I just want to let you know, from the bottom of my heart, I hate your club. I hate your manager with every bits of my heart, literally. What is the gain of hiding the information on Saka's availability? What was the gain? What was the purpose of hiding that news? He said on Friday's press conference, "Oh, we're hopeful. Saka's injury is not a major. It's not a big deal. We're hopeful. It should be available." Come Tuesday press conference for the Champions League, he says, "Oh, we're not so hopeful. He may not be available versus Liverpool." How do you flip from within a matter of 2 to 3 days? from being hopeful to not being hopeful. This guy, this is why I'm avoiding Arsenal assets as much as I can. I think as much as you wanna, target them for fixtures and whatnot, I think I can avoid the attackers and still be able to maintain my rank. I just don't think the attack is as explosive as it was in previous seasons. As you saw versus Bournemouth, they didn't manage to score a single goal. So yeah, that's just
I
my
mean, it's
thoughts on the
different
game.
without Odegaard and Saka in the team. Like, it's hard to really judge Arsenal in that performance this week.
I think that in the difficult fixtures and away from home, they have a specific setup which doesn't really make the game end to end. They're very structured and they're very rigid, and they've got a great defense. So I don't think their assets are explosive in difficult fixtures. That's why I would get rid of Saka now. And I think the entry point to getting back is in game week 18. I think they have Brentford. So, and I think there's an argument to be made where Havertz could potentially cover Saka because he's kind of at a great price point. You get a cheaper entry point into their attack, and you get to target the likes of Palmer, Salah, and Son, or even Watkins. So, yeah, I think get rid of Arsenal attackers now. They don't look great without Odegaard and Saka. So, yeah.
Man, they're talking down on your name, Star Boy. You gotta prove the doubters wrong the next couple weeks, bro. But even myself, I'm looking to sell him too. I just feel like in the big games you mentioned earlier, like Saka's just not gonna be getting that much GA. I don't think he'll be explosive. Like he'll probably still take over. And if Saka gets a pen in any of these games, that'll be annoying as someone that's gonna be selling him. But it is what it is. Gotta live with it. And
They are great in the so for example, Southampton, Leicester, the chance creation was there, the chance volume was there. So they're great in the easy fixtures. It's just away from home and in the big games, we can all use our eyes, and I'm sure the data would back it up.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. So let's move on to the next match in the lineup, and we've got the Aston Villa and Fulham game. Now we have one of the most informed strikers, and then we have Ollie Watkins. Oh wait, let me say that again. We have one of the most informed strikers, and then Raul Jimenez. What are you guys' thoughts on this match?
I tuned in for a part of the second half, and Watkins impressed me loads. I think Rodgers, his goal was quite fortunate, but he missed the sitter at the same time. So these things find their way to balance out. I think he deserved a return that game. Watkins, really impressive. I think this man is essential if you're a non-Haaland structure. He is the definition of consistent. Their team is unbelievable. On paper, I don't even think their team is that great. I believe Steven Gerrard, I saw something on Twitter today. Steven Gerrard had the majority of these players as well, barring a few this season, and he was like in the relegation battle. So a big shout out to Unai Emery. What he's done for this team is just ridiculous. 6 goals, none conceded in the Champions League, 3 wins out of 3, battling again for the season. It looks like Rodgers is balling out. Watkins getting rested in the Champions League last night. So I think he's definitely essential for
Wait, he
non.
got arrested in the Champions League?
Yeah, Watkins got a rest. Yeah, he didn't start.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's because Duran's a great striker himself. So the rotation is there. He's gonna, and Watkins is a physical monster anyway. Like I think he could probably play in both and be fine. But I want to focus on Fulham now. Raul Jimenez is averaging 2 shots on target per 90, and he's averaging 4 shots per game this season. And Muniz, who played a lot of the games last season, he averaged 4 shots per game, and that's a bigger sample size. So Fulham strikers under Marco Silva have the chance creation. I think Fulham look like a good team, and at 5.7 mil, Raul Jimenez with great fixtures arguably might be on penalties now as well. Someone I'm very high on as an asset.
Yeah, I mean, they should have conceded an extra goal because Andreas Pereira missed that pen, right? So you're just insinuating it. Yeah, you're right. So, like, I think the thing with Aston Villa is if we look at their expected goals conceded data, they're in the top 5 for defenses, but I have no faith in them keeping any clean sheets. I couldn't believe the amount of people that had, Konza in their game week 1 squads, but it is
But
what
you
it is.
say
He
that,
delivered, I think, a few weeks ago when he got a goal, right?
but they just kept 3 clean sheets in the Champions League. Like that's tougher fixtures against good teams as well. Bayern, right? Come on. So and shout out to obviously Martinez. He had a saved the pen against Andres. Now I think if you wanted to target Fulham defenders, I wouldn't blame you as well as Villa defenders. But Villa does seem to be weaker in the Premier League. But I do trust Martinez. I think his centre backs are laying him down in the EPL. But yeah.
Mm. Yeah, there's actually someone from FPL Optimize. His name is Sertop, and he actually went with the. I think he went with Martinez. I think in that he's one of the most like analytically oriented managers. So big respects to him. He's one of the best goalies I think in world football. So as long as you got him behind the sticks, like you can always there's always chance for a clean, right? And he can always make penalty saves too. So he's one of those guys. But yeah, Aston Villa are sort of like a blind spot for me. I haven't really watched a single game from them. I'm gonna continue to just bet against them the whole season, like, especially because Watkins like no pens. Yo, if Watkins is on pens, I think it shakes up the whole game really. Like I think Watkins becomes like that essential number one striker in the game. What do you guys think of that if he was on pens?
I think people pay too much attention to penalties. Personally, I think he's a great asset without penalties. So there's not been that many penalties given this season. I think penalties are good when you want to captain a player. So say if you're going against Haaland and you've got Salah. So for example, you captain Salah against Wolves. Salah doesn't get a return, but he gets that jammy penalty, right? Same as against Chelsea. He gets that penalty. But Watkins is just that player who's going to tick over and arguably get you 8 points in every game. You'd feel confident owning him, where he can just get a goal every game, kind of damage mitigate the Haaland goal if you don't own Haaland. And he's just the fixtures as well. They have great blocks of fixtures, like in between one tough game. So from like game week 13 through to 20, they have like a run where it's like 3 easy fixtures, 1 poor one, 3 easy fixtures, 1 poor one. So he's a great asset to own. Honestly, I can't wait to get him back.
Oh wow,
Another
I
thing
love
to
that. Yeah,
mention,
I mean,
is Rogers. We had very few returns, Kanji, this week, and Rogers was one of the heroes that actually returned for most people. We talk about various cheap assets within the game. I think in terms of cheap assets, like he's the best enabler in the game right now. So if you are to struggle with getting 3-4 premiums within your team, don't look no further than Rogers. He's still a good pick. I think he's still like something like 16% owned, so quite low ownership. So yeah, definitely target him and the likes of Semenyo, of course.
yeah, of course. Yeah, Simony and Rogers, they pick themselves. I think even when you look at the RobT graphics in terms of looking at projected goal involvements and then value for money, those two are like top of all players. So yeah, you mentioned two of the best ones. So we can move on to the next match. Moving on from the Aston Villa game, we'll be moving on to the Brighton and Newcastle game. Now, don't let the scoreline fool you. Now, in this match, Newcastle actually had more XG in the game, picking up around 1.95 XG. Alexander Isak had 7 shots, with 4 of them being on target. But we did hear some updates about Callum Wilson. Now, Callum Wilson's like picking up fitness, expected to be back in the next couple of weeks. I'm wondering what the impact of Callum Wilson will be on Isak in terms of his minutes. Will he be moved to the right wing position, and then Gordon will be moved to the left when Callum Wilson comes and gets on the pitch? Will Callum Wilson just start some games? I mean, he's one of the best goal and assist ratios per minute of all strikers in the Premier League. So Callum Wilson, I'm interested to see his impact on Alexander Isak. But in this match, like Brighton actually, this was an interesting point. They played Brighton, right? But Brighton benched Matoma. Could you believe that? Like, I feel like that's easily their best player. Like, of course, especially with Joao Pedro out. But I was like, I searched that around. I was like trying to research why the coach would consider benching his best player. It really reminds me of that situation when Klopp benched Salah. So I was a little bit confused, right? But then I realized it's because Matoma traveled to Japan, and during the international breaks, I think the manager will just proceed with caution. And I think this is a really good point because I think there's an international break between game week 11 and game week 12. So I don't think Mitoma is going to start that first game against Bournemouth. I think especially because it's away from home. So for those people that are considering an entry point for Mitoma from game week 12, because that's when the fixtures open up, and we'll go through it later on. And I think you should wait to bring Mitoma into game week 13, which is going to be the Leicester entry point.
Can
So that
you
was
add
just an interesting
something?
point. But
Can you add something on Welbeck? The fact that this man has continuously returned versus every single team, like 5.8. I mean, I understand he got injured. If he gets back, I think I would put him ahead of Joao Pedro now. As much as everyone hypes up Joao Pedro, Welbeck has to be in that picking order as number 1 striker pick in terms of from Brighton.
yeah, and JP is picking up the center attacking mid position, right?
Yeah.
So like Welbeck's still going to be the one that's finishing it off. There's always just a threat of like Ferguson there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, given how well Ruter's been playing for Brighton, maybe Joao Pedro's minutes will also get managed as well, right, in the
Yeah.
future.
He's injury prone anyways, mate. So
Yeah, that's the thing with JP. Like he's cheap for a reason. Like FPL priced him very well. Like
Yep.
he could just be like a troll for us, you know? But we'll see. We're gonna have to wait and find out. The fixtures open up around game week 12, and then we'll have to decide. Maybe we'll go there. He actually dropped in price. Like he fell to 5.4. Like wow. Like think about him as your eighth attacker. Like that's like the perfect cheap enabler on pens if he's starting. We'll see what happens. We can think about that in a few weeks' time. Let's move on to the next match. This is going to be an interesting game. It was Southampton versus Leicester, and I think Leicester were at home in this match, and I think Southampton were up 2-0 in the first half. I'm sure Leicester fans were out there thinking that this game was done and dusted at halftime, but man, did Leicester turn things around? What do you think, K-Man?
I think Bonote was the pick all along. People were talking about Mavdidi, but he went under the radar. He had now 2 back-to-back goals, and he looks really good, to be honest. He had a very good shot from outside the box, almost curled into the top bins. Um, Ultimately, I think he's 5 million now. I think again he could be in the consideration, but you gotta be careful when you pick this type of players with 5 million or 5.1. You can't expect them to return every week, as much as they might, get a couple of goals here and there. It's not gonna be. They're not gonna be able to sustain that. These are bottom feeder clubs, relegation teams. Expect them to get goals here and there, but not consistently. So that's one pick that obviously that people will be talking about. Another shout out, and I give it to you, is obviously Archer, who's 5 million. I think he's building up his confidence back. He scored a goal today, this weekend. So yeah, and then I want to give another shout out to Vardy. Finally, people have kept faith in him. He did score. I did say that versus Southampton, he always scores. He has a very good track record of scoring against them. So if you did kept him and followed us throughout this journey on an FPL Roundtable, we did mention that Vardy would score. So yeah, I think these are the players that I'll shout out.
Yeah, the interesting thing about players that are on penalties, especially for like bottom feeder teams, is that like their XG per 90 is usually so low. Like if you look at the amount of XG you've already had accumulated in the past couple matches, it was like 0.2 or below in most games. But it's that little, that penalty that gives that player like that 0.8 XG. And it's like a nitros boost if you're ever playing like a video game. And it's just like it just pushes them right to the top in terms of them being one of the best value picks. That's why I love going for cheap strikers, just for exactly what Vardy has just shown us. In the easy fixtures, you just play them, and then they get one lucky pen, maybe one goal from open play, and then you're cooking. And then you have all the best like premium players in the rest of your squad. So that's definitely something that I love whenever I'm looking at FPL teams. So good to see Vardy doing the business there. Let's move on to the next match, which is going to be the Everton and Ipswich game. Now, I just from my perspective, whenever Everton are coming up against another promoted side, I would always back Sean Dyche at home, away from home. Like I just really rate the manager. And for those people that were on like a later wild card, I was thinking about either Onana and Pickford and net. And this is back-to-back returns for Pickford. Like he's nuts. Like Sean Dyche knows how to get like just he knows how to win games in the Prem. Like he's shown this at Burnley. He had a terrible Burnley squad for years and he kept them up. And he's going to do the same exact thing with Everton. Calvert-Lewin went out in this match, picked up 1.3 XG in the match. Oh man, I know you're going to go off about the lap, bro. But bro, DCL 1.3 XG. Can you not just score a goal? Like, what is this guy doing, bro? It's ridiculous. Like, I know that over the course of his career, he's an XG underperformer. And I knew I put myself in this position by going there, but the fixtures were too good to ignore. And like, there's so more to come. West Ham are terrible defensively. Brentford terrible defensively. Southampton are terrible defensively. Like, it's hard to
Angie.
even sell him. It's like
Angie,
I don't know what to do.
football is not played on paper, it's played on grass. How many times do I have to say it, my friend? Guys, listen, I went with DCO in my wildcard game week 6, and I knew I messed up the minute I watched this man play for the first time ever. This man cannot score to save his life. How are you labeled as a striker, playing as a striker, getting all these chances and you can't finish to save your life? Listen, this criminal, the amount of chances this man missed. I would score those goals. The amount of 1v1s that he missed versus Ipswich, they were just handing it to him. Do you know what I mean? They're just handing it to him like, here you go, just score for us. At this point, the keeper should have just tapped the goal in his net because he can't score. Is it the same? Like, can you see? Does he have eyes? It's unbelievable.
Bro, DCL, how being a striker who can't finish is like being a movie critic who's blind. It just doesn't make sense. How is he a striker? I don't get. How are you a striker and you can't finish? So I really don't get it. But his overall gameplay is really good. You watch him and you think, well, not fair play, he's good. He's good, but then the chances he missed, I just can't get over it. Like, this is the first season I've ever brought him in. And it's the last season I'll ever bring him in. Don't care how good the fixtures are.
Hot
Yeah,
take.
you know what's gonna happen now? It's like people are gonna sell him, and he has like Brentford, West Ham, Southampton. He's gonna bag like a brace in all of them. But let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I have no idea what's gonna happen here, but I'm gonna probably hold for at least I think the Southampton game. I have the luxury of benching him versus Fulham. I don't want to be playing him versus Fulham at all. That's for sure. Like Fulham are definitely the better team. Even though I love Sean Dyche, I don't expect Everton to get results in that match, right? What do you guys think?
Well, it's interesting. Fulham against like your Evertons, Brentfords, and Wolves, they deploy a much higher line, and the proofs in the pudding with the offside traps they get per game. This season, they've had some high numbers 7, 5, and 6 against lesser teams. So I think you can, if DCL can exploit that higher line that they play in these lesser fixtures, and obviously Anderson's been red carded as well. So I'm actually going to play DCL in this fixture reluctantly, but I'm hopeful that he can get a goal because I think Everton are playing well. And just to quickly mention, Ipswich, by the way, how bad are they? I think we've kind of underestimated how bad they are as a team. Like West Ham smashed them 5-1, and look how bad West Ham are.
Mm,
Definitely a team
yeah,
to.
West Ham. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, West Ham are pretty poor even this week as well. So, yeah, you're right. It's a good point. I do still really like Leif Davis though. Like it's not about him keeping clean sheets. He'll be lucky if he keeps one or two clean sheets in the Prem. Maybe if somehow they're playing an opposition team and the opposition gets a red card, then maybe they'll keep a clean sheet in that match. But it's the attacking positions that he gets on all the set pieces, on the free kicks, on the corners. He didn't have a shot in this match, but he usually always has like one pop shot as well. So I still like Leif Davis as a pick, but it's just unfortunate that he plays for Ipswich and you can't really target them. So it's one of those things. I think we should move on to probably the best match of the entire weekend. Gotta cheer on my boy Mo Salah, man. If you're ever in doubt, you gotta captain the Egyptian king. Salah himself, if you captained him, outscored my entire team. And like most FPL teams in general, like most people didn't really get many points this week. But Salah delivered. And there has been
The
so
crowd.
much hate. There's been so much hate on the king, bro. Everybody's talking about Son, Palmer, Saka. It's like there's always like a new toy. And with Salah, he's just been so consistent. He delivers, especially in the big games. What I noticed in this match tactically is that Trent didn't get as far forward as he would in bigger games in previous seasons. So I think with Arne Slot, like the read on Liverpool is that they're going to be very solid defensively. And if it wasn't for, Konate playing Jackson 1 or 2 inches offside, we would have actually potentially kept a clean sheet. I think in this game, Chelsea had less than 1 XG in the game. But I want to emphasize how good Trent was defensively. You'll never see this narrative on social media at all, but he was really good. He basically stopped the chances being created from Jadon Sancho. And like he played so well that Sancho was subbed off at halftime. Then the new guy came on and Pedro Neto. This is my personal opinion. Love to hear what your opinion is, Stark, but I think Neto was class. He did really, really well. There was one chance that like he went through and there was nobody helping Trent defensively. And then he had this one pass to Palmer. And I was like, oh my God, he put onto his left foot and then he just shot it right over the crossbar. I was like, wow, thank God he missed that. But in general, this was just a wonderful game to watch. And Salah's been so consistent, bro. They were just saying he only gets points because of the penalties that he's been getting. He's just a lucky guy. But that assist to Curtis Jones today was class. And he's just been so consistent, man. I'm so jealous of those of you that have him. Stark, what were your thoughts on this match, man?
Um, Trent should have given away a penalty, if we're being honest. So this defensive masterclass is just, he had a good game, yeah, 100%. Sancho made him look good, and secondly, that was a penalty, no?
I don't know. That was pretty soft. I don't know, bro. I don't know.
Bro, what, pretty soft. The Curtis Jones one was pretty soft, though. But anyways, the game's done. I think part of the reason why Trent was so pegged back was because I think we were actually breaking your press really easily and overloading with Gusto and Sancho. And that's why we saw Salah defensively track back a lot that game, because he had to. He had no option but to. We were just a bit lackluster in the final third. Palmer had a stinker. The fixtures aren't great. I've been saying it as a Chelsea fan. Like, I love Palmer, but the fixtures aren't great. The entry point, like, if you've got the luxury, I think you should bring in a Son before him. However, if you don't, obviously the better move is Palmer, because Newcastle United is a good entry point. to an extent, but that Arsenal game, I don't know. I think if you had Salah, okay, man, are you because Calafiori might be out as well. He picked up a bad injury. Are you is there a debate to captain Mo Salah again ahead of Haaland?
I was actually going to ask that same question: are we going to be so convinced with Haaland again because he blanked 3 weeks in a row? Ultimately, Salah does love to play versus big teams. So does Palmer. I think yes, Palmer did have a stinker versus Liverpool, but ultimately, I think you have to give credit to Curtis Jones, the man you can see on your screen. I think he put up a phenomenal performance. Before we move on to captaincy, I do want to touch on this game. I think ultimately the way Liverpool played, they played a conservative game. They didn't play like how Klopp used to play or normally go all out. They did track back almost every single player. They were defending with 11 man, and you didn't see Trent go forward at all. Basically, Salah was rather playing the Trent role, like creating all these chances for Curtin Jones. So look, Curtin Jones MVP, absolutely a phenomenal performance. Salah, same thing. I think that's the best performance I've seen in this season. If you put the XG and XA aside, I think you have to look at from just pure football point of view to judge Salah in this game. And then another thing in regards to the Chelsea, I thought Chelsea did have a good start. Ultimately, giving up that pen did kind of ruin their good start. So I really, really enjoyed that game ultimately. And I do think that, listen, Palmer, he had a stinker. I think he will step it up versus Newcastle. Moving on to the captaincy shout, I think Haaland is not a set in stone captain anymore, especially without KDB and Rodri. My current thinking is I want to captain either Palmer or I want to captain Salah is my thinking, of course. But my priority is Palmer and Mbeumo and then Salah. Because the reason why I think Arteta is going to play terrorist ball and he's ultimately going to have every single player, building the Great Wall of China, whether we like it or not. And I think to break that wall down, it will take more than Salah, to be honest. It will take every single one of Liverpool players. You might see Konate coming up and creating some chances. So yeah, I don't think Salah is a good captain because of lack of explosivity, as well as the terrorist ball that Arteta is going to play.
Well, isn't Darwin's probably going to start because Jota's injured, isn't he? So I don't fancy Liverpool to score if Darwin's up front. He can't hit a barn door. He's worse than DCL.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's tough.
The Uruguayan DCL.
Maybe play what's it called? Diaz.
Striker.
Or Gakpo instead of Darwin.
You're on mute, Kanji.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think Gakpo made it clear in preseason he's not a striker, bro. Like he wants to play on the wing. That's his best position. He's been thriving there. I don't know why they would move him away. It's just, bro, Darwin, man. Like we've been here before, bro. He didn't ruin our season last year, but Diaz and Darwin's poor finishing, that really dented us in the biggest moments. And coming up against Arsenal, I'm sure he's going to have a big chance or two to fall to him, especially with Saliba out. So I'll be praying that he scores the goal, but I'm not sure if he's going to be an FPL pick. In fact, it might actually hamper Salah's output. That's just something to think about in the future. But apart from that, I think I just want to emphasize Liverpool are just so good defensively, and I would really back them. Like long term, I still think Trent is the highest scoring defender in the game if he plays 38 weeks, and I still think that if we're looking at like selling some of the other defenders, I think no one really compares to Trent. Like he's just a level above everybody else. So
Bro,
if you own him, I'd still keep the patience.
bro, just quickly, if Jota is ruled out, for those that are, prepared to just take short-term punts and have a good structure in place, if Darwin is going to get the start versus Villa and Brighton, with his running style, like in behind, his pace, his movement, he could genuinely get a lot of chances. It's just whether you can handle the headache of him missing 10 before he puts 3 away. But he genuinely could feast in those games, like systematically speaking.
Yeah, 100%. Brighton and Aston Villa suit him perfectly. I don't know how many minutes he's gonna get. Like it's weird. Like the coach has completely lost the faith in Darwin, and it's the complete opposite under Klopp. Like Klopp has kept so much faith in Darwin, even when he was playing poor. Klopp started him every game, and so we know there's a good quality player there. Just the finishing is just lackluster. He does a lot of other things pretty well. Um, yeah, I'm hopeful, but I'm nervous at the same time. So I don't know what to say. Um, yeah, it's pretty risky if you go there, but I think he has usually picked up a lot of the big chances when he starts. So we should never like poo-poo on Darwin. I still think he's a good pick. If he picks up form, I'll even be there myself. So yeah, that's going to be the Liverpool Chelsea analysis, and we'll move on to one of the most controversial games of the game week, and it's going to be. Oh, never mind. We're not going to Man City yet. We're going to be going on to Nottingham Forest and Palace. Bro, came out. What are your thoughts on this match?
I watched this game. Man like Chris Wood, I've kept him from game week 1, and then I saw him in game week 3, regrettably, and then I regret every single day, and I bought him back in game week 6 wildcard. I've told every single people that I've met, including Kanji and Stark, that Wood is by far a better striker than DCO, but I was told otherwise. I was told there is a comparison, there is something close, apparently. But look, under that 6 million, or between 6 to 6.5, he is the best budget striker in the game. There is no debate. If you look at his upcoming fixtures, Leicester and West Ham, these are ideal for a couple of goals. I can see at least him get at least 2 or 3 goals in the next 3 fixtures. Um, Another thing to touch on, in terms of his conversion rate, I think he's top 3 in the league right now, converting big chances. So that's something really, really interesting. He's in the likes of Haaland and Watkins category. And then you also have the fact that Sells 4.5 right now, best budget goalkeeper in the game. I think he kept 2 or 3 clean sheets already this season, and he was also very good for saves. The amount of shots he saved from Eze, Mateta, incredible. I think the defense is to target, and they're also, if you're in terms of attack, I think I wouldn't go for anyone except Wood because he does seem to be the target man. And I think he was unfortunate to just get only 1 return this game. I think he could have easily had a hat trick, to be honest. But listen, ultimately, strikers are going to get chances, and they're going to miss. They're going to miss some and make some. I'm really, really happy with him. He's one of the players that returned for me in a terrible game week where we pretty much everyone had blanks and maybe 1 or 2 players returning. So definitely hero of the week. Big shout out to Chris Wood, and obviously Sales. We came up with 11 pointer.
Big shout out
Yeah,
to
legends.
big shout out to those who still kept the faith with Eze. Your points are coming soon, boys. Don't worry.
Yo.
Oh, but
No,
Mateta's not.
I rate Eze as a pick, bro. Honestly, like he has Wolves and coming up, but I think he'll get something against them. Yeah, Spurs coming up. Spurs defensively, they usually struggle, so I think he'll return. I think people should stay patient, but I don't know about you guys.
Bro, but Mateta's not starting. He's on penalties now. Oh my gosh, get him in your teams right now. Take a -8 for him. Come on. Like if you
You
wait
guys
for
don't like that?
a player after like 8, 9 game weeks to get 1 return and then I've kept it, bro, come on. 9 game weeks and like no, come on. Their team
Yeah,
just they
they're not
stink.
the same without Elise, right? They're not the same. They're not performing at that level, bro. Last year they were one of the hottest teams in the league. Like we all owned at least 2 Palace players going into the last like 4 or 5 games. Remember Mateta on the double game week, bro? That guy picked up a monster haul for managers as well as Eze and Elise as well. So we know the quality that a team like them can have, but they're just missing that spark.
Bro,
Once the
that
spark comes back, we'll be back, But for now, I still think it's fair. Just I don't think you would buy, but I think selling it's just like reluctantly still. I don't know. I wouldn't buy for sure.
bro, he's the easiest sell to Garnacho in the world. Secondly, like it just goes to show what form can do. Like I'll give a couple examples. This is just a player. Brennan Johnson, 7 goals in 7 games. Crystal Palace last season, new manager bounce, consecutive wins, playing good football, the confidence, Mateta started shining, everything, right? Now look at the complete opposite. They're playing terrible, no confidence, no release, Eze not really returning. United, look at the same. Poor start. Bruno couldn't hit a barn door. He's even missing cutbacks for Portugal. Confidence has a big impact and knock-on effect on a player's output because a lack of confidence, like they start doubting themselves in situations when they're in front of goal,
Yeah.
overthink so many factors. So I just think you should avoid these players from Piss Palace, and when they pick it back up, then you should jump on if you think the fixtures are good. But that's just my take.
As
Yeah.
there was a
That's a
sell in
pretty
game
fair
week
point.
4, not in game week 9, by the way. He's already been a sell a long, long time ago. I don't know why this is even a conversation or a question. Furthermore, I've already said FZ, Bruno, DCO, these are all traps and clowns. And if you still have kept them and, you're keeping faith and they're due, you know what? I hope you keep them longer.
Bro,
The rich get richer from Cayman's perspective, eh?
I want to say Isolation is a fantastic footballer. He's a great footballer. I just think they are a struggling team and there's better assets available with also great fixtures.
Yeah, that's fair. None of them have pens. None of them are nailed to start every game. Like Garnacho's not nailed. He's not on pens. I don't know. It's a tough
Yeah.
sell, but anyway, that's kind of where the edge is, I think, in FPL these days. Deciding when a player's to sell or not. Like Eze for me is one of those. Depends how you see it. Anyway, move on to the last match, which is going to be the Manchester City and Wolves game. Now, this was the type of match I went into personally without Haaland. And a lot of managers, we had the likes of Chai, we had the likes of Raptor, who changed their entire team structure, wildcarded in game week 6 for the main reasons of captaincy against Wolves and captaincy against Southampton, and he blanked in one of them already. I can't even imagine what they must be thinking, where they had like the more optimal structures over 38 weeks just to bring Holland in because they were scared of what he would have done. And they've just been very poor. Haaland was invisible. He had no shots in the first half. I think his XG was less than 0.1 in the game. Like, he was really looking at his teammates, wondering where the service is going to be coming from. And Wolves just sat deep. They had a very solid game plan. Craig Dawson was very disciplined. He always plays very well against Haaland. He battled him well. He was really being physical with Haaland before the ball was even going to go to him. Like, he was just giving him a tough time, not giving him any space. I love the way Craig Dawson defended him. And Haaland, it's not that he's predictable, but he relies on the service of the boys that create for him. And what I'm noticing, just personal opinion, is that like when they're playing Gundo and Bernardo in the center attacking mid positions, bro, City become very predictable. Gundo and Bernardo cannot score the way that Foden and KDB can from the edge of the box. And because of that, you don't need to be, doubling up on any of them. You're not really scared about their shots from the edge of the box. Yes, Gavardiol has scored some goals, and like shout out to the owners that went there, especially with the way that they've been performing defensively. I'm glad that you guys got the points. But over the course of 38 weeks, I don't think he's a good pick at 6.0. Even though he did score some goals, I'm thinking about City defensively. They're a shambles, bro. Without Rodri, they're playing Kovacic, and he's stepped up. He is filled the void, but he's not good at winning duels and protecting the defense as well as Rodri was. So I don't really trust him defensively at all. But Rico at 4.7, I still think that's a good pick just because of the value of it. But the offense itself, it's just really stagnating. And like a lot of defenses or a lot of opposition managers should be looking at the game plan that Wolves had, where they doubled up on Haaland, they didn't let him shoot, and they made the other players try to beat them, and they couldn't. What are your guys' thoughts on this match?
I punted on Foden last week, so I was disappointed to see him get benched. Brought him in for Saka. He impressed me off the bench, though, I must say. I thought he was needed. If a team sits in a low block, you kind of need to pop shots off from outside the box. That's something else Rodri and KDB gives Man City. How many times has Rodri scored a screamer outside the box and won them the game, or KDB? Foden can do the same thing, and he loves on the half turn to receive the ball, look and shoot from outside the box. I just think he looked quite sharp when he came on. Hopefully he starts versus Southampton. I think he's needed for sure. Haaland, this game was a big wake-up call. I bought Haaland in and sold Salah, who I would have captained this game week. So I got a red arrow instead. I broke my structure. I feel like I'm now 5 transfers behind the optimal structure to do very well this season. So I'm now planning to get back to no Haaland. Without KDB and Rodri, the emphasis is on control so much. He's trying to compensate for losing Rodri, and he's playing Bernardo, Gundogan, and I just think they're losing a bit of attacking flair. But I don't think he'll do that versus Southampton. I think he knows he doesn't need to, and I think they're going to go all-out attack. So I'm hoping Haaland can repay me next week. But moving forwards, I'm planning ways to get off Haaland, to be honest.
I have a question. What's the difference between me and Haaland on that day and on that pitch? What did he do that I didn't do sitting at home watching? I'm just asking. The only thing I see the difference is he did some cardio and I didn't. I was just eating some chips and wings, Look, this man is on fraud watch. I've been saying it. I went with him from game week 1 because there was Rodri and KDB and whatnot. And I do think that he was going to have a good start. He was healthy and whatnot. He said, look, I'm healthy for the first time ever. And I want to score this amount of goals, X, Y, and Z. And he did do that in the first 3 game weeks. Now, the last 3 game weeks is blanked, and I've captained him. And he's worth 15.4. When I can afford the likes of Son, Palmer, Salah, Saka, Trent, pretty much every single premium under the sun if I don't go for him. Now, if he keeps blanking, I'm going to give him 1 or 2 more weeks. If he keeps blanking, I'm seriously considering the same thing as you, Stark, is to dispose him. And another thing I want to watch out for is if KDB is back or not. If he's not back, I think he could be even disposed sooner I do want to reassess though in game week 10, see what he does without KDB. I think the biggest issue right now the City have is trying to find service for him. I think Pep tried with Grealish and Bernardo to feed Haaland. It didn't work. And then they tried with Doku and Savio, a bit more fast, skillful wingers. That also didn't work. I think he's experimenting now. I think the last thing he's going to try now is probably a bit of a balanced one, a bit more one slow winger, a bit more methodical, traditional, and then the other one is a bit more like flair-wise. So maybe Doku or Savio on the right and Grealish on the left. Maybe that will work. But listen, this man is starving out here. He's homeless without KDB. He's crying for him to come back. And ultimately, I'm contemplating on whether to captain him or not, let alone keeping long term.
Yeah. You're on mute, Kanji, bro.
I was gonna say, my bro, like you've been high on Holland since game week 1. So it's really weird to see you change your tune, because
No,
like
no, no,
that's the reason
no.
that you guys not specifically like Stark and Kima, not specifically it's just Holland, but like your faith in going with him and captaining him and getting the captaincy is right. It's like Holland has really like been one of the reasons you're doing so well, right?
Yes, yes, but I have to add that KDB was there, Rodri was there. Now they're not there. So things does change when there is
Yeah.
two big major injuries that happens in the team and the whole
I
system
wish
changes.
I wish we had a graphic that showed the difference between like with or without KDB, bro. That would have
I
been
do have
smart.
it. I will share it after. So let's just move on to the next section. Actually, that does show that. Speaking of,
K-Man,
yeah,
K-Man, just Haaland scored a lot of goals early on, and Rodri didn't get many minutes.
yes, but KDB was still there, right? So
Yeah, of course, yeah. He's a
yeah,
big. I think he's a
yeah.
bigger for Haaland than Rodri.
I think KDB is more important. Yes, KDB is definitely needed
You're
in order
right.
to get him quality chances.
Yeah, I have to step away for 2 minutes, but just a reminder to the chat that I don't know, I can't read it right now, but Cayman, we'll be able to answer questions at the end of the stream, right?
Yeah, we'll be able to answer questions. I can see a lot of questions on the chat, so guys, we'll get back to you
We could
once we finish our agenda.
we could just answer the questions now while Kanji has to step away for 2 minutes if you
Yeah,
want.
we could. Yeah, we
Perfect.
could actually. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, we'll do that. I'll take some questions from the chat. I'll go from the
Yeah,
top.
get
Obviously,
your
we've got FPL GM6 says hello, fellas. Hi, mate. Thank you for tuning in. And asked Kanji how he's doing. I think Kanji is aware now, so he'll answer that when he's back. Saka to Son. If Saka is injured, I'll do the move. And for a -4, Johnson to Garnacho. Thoughts on that stock?
a -4.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if it's worth a -4 to be honest, but I really prefer Son and Garnacho to Saka and Johnson.
Fair
To be
enough.
fair,
Mm-hmm. I'll say just do one of the moves, mate. Just do Saka to Son and don't take the -4. Keep Johnson.
no, because I can see the angle because if you look at West Ham, like Garnacho should get a lot of joy in that game. So, and even Chelsea scored a brace against us last season.
Mm-hmm. But I'd personally not take a -4. I would just get Son in for Saka if Son is healthy, because there's rumors that he's not training because apparently he has a knock. So just do wait for Friday press conference before you move on Son.
But
Yeah,
Ange said he said that Son was never going to be involved in this game, so he's obviously just resting because he felt a bit of pain after the
fair
game.
enough. Fair enough.
So
Maybe just the rest. But I'll still
yeah,
wait for more information. And then another question we have is what's that? Let me see. Fair enough. What have we got? Sammy said talk about Kulu's new role, which we did. Um, it says Kulu's, yeah, we talked about Kulu's new role. Johnson to Kulu. Johnson to Kulu. Would you do Johnson to Kulu, by the way? FPL GM6 asked again.
no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that move because it's sideways. You've got Johnson. Johnson gets good XG. He's part of that attack. He's in good form. He didn't return. Like, it's just too knee jerky. You've already made the move to a Spurs attacker, so you've almost like there's other priorities. There's other moves. Look ahead. Like, I wouldn't make that move. You just got to live. Any other week, Johnson could score and Kulu could do nothing. Kulu's a great player, but he's returned. So the same thing could happen. Kulu's a player who could have a fantastic game, look like the best player on the pitch, and get no returns.
Yep. Just another shout out to FPO Bailey for tuning in. He said good analysis. They're comparing how Guardiola dealt with it being last man. how compared to how Saliba dealt with it. So shout out to FPL Cortex for tuning in. Rami Mia, shout out. And obviously, what else is the question we've got here? It says, obviously, Danny Drag doesn't agree with my analysis on Liverpool and Salah's performance. That's all right, mate. And I'm not crazy, by the way. So you're crazy for saying that's Salah's best performance. Okay. Okay. He's just talking trash, to be honest.
No, statistically speaking, if like say if Bruno got a penalty against Brentford, like would people be going crazy over Bruno because they had similar data? It's just he didn't get a penalty and Salah did. Like Salah had,
yeah.
He had a great game, but statistically, like he didn't have, and like he weren't getting loads of chances. He was quite wide. He was more of a creator. Kanji, you're on mute, bro.
Yeah, I did mention that. Without, I did say XG and XA aside, I think that was his best performance of the season. If you put XG and XA aside,
it was the best performance in the Prem.
This
like
season.
That Champions League performance where he got the goal and the assist was probably the best performance of the year. But
fair enough. I didn't watch the Champions League game. I'm talking about the Premier League specifically. That's the best I've seen, and I watched every single game that he played, and I think that was the best performance that he put. Personally,
I mean, it's a really big bounce back from like the Wolves and Palace performances from
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then last, I think there is no more questions. I think we'll get back to it. All right. So let's move on to our agenda, guys.
Yes. So now we're going to be talking about the impact of Haaland with and without KDB. So, K-Man, what are we thinking about this data here?
So this is what I've gathered, boys. Last minute. Ultimately, this data is showing us in the first section is this season data, the expected goals and expected assists, chance created, big chance created, Haaland's big chances, Haaland's goals with and without KDB. If you look at the first 5 matches with KDB, he averaged 2.3 expected goals and 0.4 expected assists. What we need to look at the number is the expected goals because Haaland, we're not expecting Haaland to get too many assists, to be honest. So now if you look at that 2.3 compared to when KDB was without KDB, there's a significant drop to 1.4 without KDB. Now that tells a lot how important KDB is in regards to Haaland's getting return. That's almost what 0.9 difference without KDB. That's a big dip. And then obviously you also have chance created with KDB 16.4 per game compared to without KDB you got 12. So there's not a big dip there, but still that's just the generic chances. And then the another one, big chance, that is the most significant drop I've ever seen. Big chance created 3.6 per game compared to without KDB 0.7. That's triple, like less, could not even double the dip, triple. And then you got Haaland's big chances, 10 big chances, 5 games with KDB, 0 big chances, guys, 0 big chances in 3 games. And we're captaining Haaland. The guy is getting 0 big chances. He's the best striker when he gets big chances in the Premier League to finish his chances. Over Son, over Salah, everyone. He finishes his 1v1s all the time. But the problem is he's not getting into 1v1s. He's getting double, triple man, and his teammates can't provide him quality chances. And that is the problem that we have with Haaland. No one is saying Haaland is all of a sudden a bad striker. It's just that he needs to be spoon-fed in order to get the goals. That might be too harsh to say spoon-fed, but you know what I mean. So, and then
you are kind of spoon-feeding him, or at least putting him in good positions.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And then looking at the last, I would say last 2.5 years that he's been at Man City, historical data, the match played total 40 matches with Kevin Durant and with with Kevin, I said Kevin Durant, with Kevin De Bruyne compared to without Kevin De Bruyne. Shout out to basketball, shout out to Golden State Warriors, yeah, cheek shout out. All right, goals scored with KDB, he's got 36, without KDB 19. When you look at it on the surface, he's got pretty good data without KDB. But I think that data is a bit more skewed because Alvarez was there, Gundo was there, there are good players that was there, And then now you have expected goals 0.4 without KDB, and then that drops to 0.2. But expected is not what we want to look at, is chance created and big chance. So the last 2.5 years, 3.5 per game with KDB and 1 without KDB. Again, triple the drop. So you can see, guys, there's a significant drop. Even if you look at a big data, even if you don't look at a small sample size, even in a bigger sample size, it clearly highlights that his opportunity of getting goals and assists reduces by half or over a half without Kevin De Bruyne. So Kevin De Bruyne. So yeah, I think you got to look at and assess this if you want to keep him long term. Personally, I want to see when Kevin Durant is KDB. I'm bumbling that. Personally, I want to see when KDB is back. And then obviously, if he's back, then I'll probably keep him. If not, definitely think of plans to move him.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's pretty fair. I guess the question is going to be specifically for this week. I mean, a lot of people have been considering maybe using that triple captaincy chip on him. I mean, if we look at the Ipswich fixture, you know what he did in that game. A lot of people are feeling some sort of not like FOMO, but it's like, why can't he repeat that against a team that's probably worse than Ipswich? Now, of course, KDB is not there, but I still expect Man City to go out and win the game. And according to RobT, they have projected goals as a team of, I think, 3.2 or more. So, I mean, Holland's probably going to be the one scoring those goals, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think Foden could outscore him in that game. That's what my gut instinct, like, when you have a gut feeling in FPL, I look at Kanji raising his eyebrows. This I saw that. Yeah, honestly, my gut is telling me, I think, because there's shout out Professor, FPL Professor, he's kept with the faith with no Haaland, and he's captaining Foden this week, and I'm kind of jealous. I think my gut just tells me Foden outscores him. I don't know why. I'm curious to see how they perform tonight, though, because I feel like, are they both starting tonight, Haaland and Haaland and Foden?
Haaland and Pep, yeah, Foden starting, yeah.
Is Haaland starting?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if Pep maybe tries like experiments with a system, or maybe tries to just build that relationship with a bit of confidence for the Southampton
Guess
game.
who scored?
Who?
Haaland.
Oh, Foden.
Foden.
Oh my god.
Because he's going to play
Oh
centrally.
my god.
One thing I noticed as well, when he came on, he took the corner. So if he takes set pieces as well, they're going to get a lot of them, because Southampton are going to be pegged back. They're going to pop shots. The ball's going to go out for a corner a lot. And if he takes them, he does have a great delivery. So
I'm hoping Pep Roulette hits and he gets benched. Sorry, owners.
that data, the big chances for the team, the drop-off is consistent. Like that is pretty consistent data, even like the first 4 games and then the last 3, and then like over the season, 3.5 to 1 point. Like, because when you captain Haaland at that price, if you have him for starters, you're sacrificing a few decent assets. So if you captain him, you need him to score a brace, because Salah can get a 10-pointer through just scoring one cheesy penalty and getting a clean sheet point, getting 1 point more for the goal, and getting 3 bonus. Haaland needs to score a brace minimum every week, realistically, to justify his price tag. And if you look at that data, for me, it's just not worth it.
Yep. We move on to the next slide.
100%, bro. Let's move on. All right, so this one's going to be an interesting wildcard draft. Maybe this is going to be the type of team that you could look to build towards if you decide to go without Holland. Now, Stark, you put some time into this draft, so why don't you walk it through?
This is not necessarily. This is not a wildcard draft, by the way. This is, but essentially, this is how I kind of want my team to look for, like, from now until game week 15, all the way through to 20. So Isak entry point is game week 15 when the fixtures turn. It gives you an opportunity to analyze them further, see if they can build momentum and improve things. Joao Pedro, ideally, I'd rather have Raul Jimenez, and Raul Jimenez would come in before him. But if Pedro's back fit and we know he's going to start and he's taking penalties in that team, it could be a steal at that price. For me, it's more of the structure of having Palmer, Son, and Salah in midfield, because you get the captaincy in game week 11 from Son against Ipswich. You get that captaincy in 16 against Southampton. You've got Palmer in 12 against Leicester. Arguably Salah next week against Brighton, or you could even captain Salah against Southampton. Like, the main point of no Haaland is you need to feel confident in your captaincy. So my advice is, if you're planning to go no Haaland, please look ahead and make sure that you feel comfortable going against him. Because in my opinion, Palmer could easily haul against Leicester. Son could easily haul against Ipswich. Salah could haul against Southampton or Brighton. And if you think that, as a midfielder, they're going to naturally score more points, and they're talismanic for their team. So even if Haaland does score a brace, if Palmer gets a 10-pointer, your team, look at that team compared to any Haaland team. overall team's going to outscore them, and your captaincy's keeping up. But the main point is when Haaland does blank, the green arrow is huge.
And he will blank without KDB. Trust me, not maybe in the next fixture, but in the coming fixtures, he will blank without KDB. And you can quote me on that if you want. So you're muted, Kanji.
Well, KDB should be back by then, but we'll see.
But the fixtures great. The
go on.
fixtures aren't even great anyways, though. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but Haaland can return in any game as long as it's not Liverpool and Arsenal. I'd back him to return, right?
No, without KDB. Come on.
I mean, bro, in the more difficult games, it's back and forth, spacing behind. Any Dumbo can just put the ball over the top. Haaland can just run into the space and score. We'll see, man. I don't
We'll
know.
see.
I'm more scared about what he's gonna do in those types of games with the space than what he can do without KDB in teams that sit deep. So
Yeah,
I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out.
there's two fixtures that are great for him coming up, and it's Tottenham and Brighton. Tottenham and Brighton are good fixtures for Haaland, KDB or not. They will play a more open game, and especially that Tottenham game. I think that is, I think that's the game. That's going to be a very enjoyable game to watch. Even City Chelsea, I think the next City Chelsea are a team to target as well. Not to target, but you shouldn't feel scared of seeing Chelsea for any. If you've got Salah, you've got Haaland, and you see you're playing Chelsea, or even Son against Chelsea, you shouldn't look at it as a red fixture. It's going to be an end-to-end game.
Mhm. Yeah, looking at the structure of the team, I think from my perspective, you're just missing Gabriel. Like if we put Gabriel in that defense, then I'd feel much more comfortable. I know you're covering it up with Raya, but I don't know. I can't look past Gabriel and Trent as like the best defenders in the game, and Watkins is the only one that I'd have doubts over. Other than that, I really like the team. So yeah, it looks great to me.
I think one thing I want to add if I were to do this team is if I'm going to go with no Haaland, sorry, I would want to have a City middle list. I don't know what you guys think about that. I don't know, maybe Kevin De Bruyne or someone like that just to cover them attacking wise. Thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I think Foden is a big one. I think I think Foden could be a little underestimated asset, to be honest. Like I know he's a minutes risk and it's annoying, but if there is a block of fixtures there, like there is now, like that's the luxury of no Haaland. Those who have stayed no Haaland have the luxury of having Foden right now. Like I use the professor as an example. He has Foden captain and he brought him in just for Saka, because most people would have had Saka, Salah. So when you have that freemium midfield structure, it's so easy to play the fixtures when the fixtures are good.
Yeah. The
Agreed.
thing is with Son, it's like he's like fixture proof, so you don't need to like worry about them. But yeah, I know what you mean. The other two, you want to be targeting the easy games. Yeah, it makes sense.
And shout
I'm
out
with you there.
Kanji. If you look at Kanji's structure, he has that luxury right now. He has Son, Foden, and Palmer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll
Well,
have a
yeah, that's
look
a
at that.
preview of
Yeah,
my transfer.
yeah, we'll have a look at that.
For
Let's
sure.
move on
Yeah, no worries.
to
Yeah, we can move
our.
on to the captaincy and premium matrix, right? So, Stark, you wanted to just add this in. I think it's a really good graphic in terms of just like looking at the players that we should be considering. Like, I think they're sort of showing you how important Palmer's going to be in this run from game weeks 12. I think he becomes completely essential. Um, Isak's fixtures, I think from 15, 16, and 17 are really good. The 12 and 13 are just solid, but you have the carrot of 15, 16, 17. Bruno, I don't think we need to touch too much upon him. Son's fixtures are pretty much irrelevant in my opinion. Um, and I think Saka is the one that you can see again from game week 12. They really open up. Arguably, they're better. I think because Fulham in 15 isn't as good. Everton is also not as good in my opinion. But I think from 17, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there's that fixture in game week 13 for Saka against West Ham. West Ham have been so poor, so I think I would be tempted to bring him in for game week 13 and just hold him through because even Man United, I mean, Man United could be a very defensive game. We'll see. But I just look at that where it's like Holland has the Nottingham Forest game. I just and Palace and Man United and Aston Villa and Liverpool, like you don't need him there. You're not captaining him. So I definitely agree with you guys' opinions on selling him, but I still think that Saka and Palmer will be important from game week 12 onwards, and I'd look to put those guys in my team, and not even just the premiums. I think Arsenal defense. It's very important to at least be on Gabriel or Raya. I think Gabriel's an absolute lock. I think you should try your best to bring him into your team. Like Gabriel plus one additional Arsenal defender is probably optimal in this run rather than a Havertz, just because I think the fixtures are actually more difficult than what meets the eye, especially given that they already played against Southampton and Leicester. But anyway, that's my personal opinion. So that's how I'm seeing the Prem. What are you guys' thoughts on this premium matrix?
Yeah, it's very good to have this matrix. Shout out to Lego, is it Lego Mane FPL? Like
Mhm.
just such a basic format, done a great job. Like the blue fixtures, Watkins, telling you underrated. Look at 14, 15, and then you got like
Mm.
three nice fixtures, and then because Chelsea, Tottenham, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Southampton are good fixtures. I would say City's a great fixture as well. Brighton's a good fixture. Like City are vulnerable in the transition. They always have been, and Rodri's always mitigated that. But without Rodri, they're even more vulnerable. Look at Wolves. Wolves do not have the quality of Villa, and just if they just had that final cutting edge, Wolves could have been in so many times on that transition. But that's obviously the style of play they were playing. Son, great fixtures. Interesting thing about Son and why I'm so high on him is because he is such a great finisher, as K-Man had the graph for us and Kanji's been pointing out. So if he's playing in the team that has the highest XG in the league, then his chance volume's going to go up. So arguably, with his great finishing, he should be getting more returns. And if he's on
Yeah.
penalties, great fixtures, he's just someone I want in my team, especially while Saka. I'm going to go against Saka. My gut's telling me all the content creators are high on Saka. A lot of managers are high on Saka. And I'm against him from now until game week 17/18. And I think Son will outscore him. But that's just my take and my opinion.
Yeah, he's just like a taker. You're not really worried about that explosivity from Saka usually. So I think it makes sense. Yeah, it's pretty fair. Cayman, you have any thoughts on the Matrix?
When I'm looking at this, I think for me, if you were in the structure of saying, look, I don't want to do switch premiums and things like that. I want to trust a structure, and I want to do just switch around my budget options, the likes of MBMO, the likes of Rogers, or even your Delapse and Wood and whatnot. And you want to keep, say, for season long Palmer and say Salah, Saka, or Son, whichever three, or Haaland. Um, I would say I would stick with the Haaland, Salah, and Palmer draft. I think the reason why, because that mitigates most of the risk. And in regards to, if you look at their ownership, I think they're the most highly owned. In terms of big upside, they're the biggest upside premiums as well. Even in regards to captaincy, if you switch your captaincy around them, you're looking at a haul almost every week. Whereas if you're captaining the
Mhm.
likes of Son and the likes of Saka, the likes of Watkins, I do think it's a bit more of a punty move rather than a more of a, I say, a guaranteed return. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Those premiums are the ones like if you own them, like Palmer, Salah, and Holland, it feels like a comfort blanket when you captain them. Like you feel happy and you're pretty confident they'll get something. We just trust them a little bit more. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So that's great analysis, and I think it's time to move on to my favorite section of the podcast, PFC. This is where we pick somebody that's a punt that's 10% or lower in terms of ownership. Then we have our flop, somebody that's usually above 25% ownership in the game that we think won't return, and captaincy, the player that we think will score the most points. K-Man, what are we thinking this week, bro?
I had Davis as a
Oh, this
punt.
is actually, you know what, bro? Yeah, sorry. This is a review of last week. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So last week, yeah, I had Davis as a punt. I had ESR as a flop and Haaland as a captain. As you can see, Haaland should have been a flop instead. And yeah, and the Davis punt didn't work out. But there's no regrets. I do think that Ipswich as a team is horrible. And I think the style of football they're playing is the issue rather than the player. The player is really good. He looked promising, really attacking. And ESR flop was an easy one, in my opinion. He's quite highly owned, 26%. I don't think the fixtures are turning now. Maybe gets few more returns, but versus Villa, I didn't see him getting a return. With Haaland, disappointed. Um, yeah, as I said, he may be on the chopping blocks if KDB is not back soon. Only 1 point. Listen, we'll come back stronger.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm looking at it from my perspective where, I'm looking left, I'm looking right. I'm beating both my bros, and if I can get 2 points every week, I think that's pretty solid. So Foden as the punt, he actually outscored Holland off the bench. What a legend. And then captaincy on Holland, bruh, what a waste. I should have put him as my flop, bro. And then the flop, of course, was Poro. He actually had really solid attack positions, very solid data, but I'm really glad that he blanked. But I think there are going to be some returns on my cards, and I'm going to be pretty weary to put him on the flop category in the future. Stark, what are your thoughts, bro?
Leif Davis was a terrible punt. I have to take accountability for that. That was a terrible decision. Diaz, I knew would flop. I knew he wouldn't start. I said that on the pod last week. He didn't start. Captaincy, Haaland let me down big time. But obviously, if we move on to the tally, you can get a bigger picture on how we're doing in each section as well. And just to say, guys, like, please comment your PFC, and we enjoy reading it. And we'll, once the pod's done, go through reading it, and you can keep up with us, see if you can outscore us. I think it's
Yeah,
a good
for sure.
it's a good way as well to look back and see maybe what you need to improve on. So I'm good at knowing who to bet against, but I need to seriously improve my punts. My punts I'm punting the ball like DCL. Terrible.
Yeah, you're just like cursing players, bro.
I'm gonna turn it around. Have you got the punts for next week? Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's move on to the next week. Gameweek 9 punt. I'll go first. I've got Wissa as a punt versus Ipswich. I think no brainer. He gets something at least. I've got Diaz as a flop versus Arsenal. They're going to build a great one of China. I don't see him getting anything. And then I've got Haaland as captain. You know what? I shouldn't have put him as Haaland. Maybe I should put someone else. This guy's going to blank again. It's horrible. But listen, Southampton at home. Come on, he has to get returned, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we're all on the same page there, so we all have the same captain. It just makes sense. Like on paper, if you have Holland, you captain him. My punt this week is going to be Kairu Matoma. His ownership is less than 10%, which is very surprising because I know how good of a player he is. And this fixture playing against Wolves at home, Wolves have been very underrated. Whenever they're playing against the big teams, they haven't been conceding that many goals. But in the games against like mid to bottom table sides, it's usually a back and forth style of game. I think Mitoma will find a way to get a goal or an assist in this match. I absolutely love him. Japanese guy, he's so good. And then Kai Havertz is my flop. And I know it's not at Anfield, it's at the Emirates, and Havertz has a very good record. I think he scored in every single game at home. But not this week, boys. Coming up against the big man, Van Dijk. I don't think so. And that's going to be what my PFC is, bro. What do we think in Stark?
Foden, punt, easy. Brought him in my team. I think he's going to do well. Flop, Havertz. I just see him focusing more on the defensive side of the game. He sacrifices a lot for his team with his running and how much ground he covers. And Van Dijk is someone who can definitely aerially keep him at bay, same as Konate. So, and I just really hope Haaland repays my faith in him from ripping up my structure. Because if he doesn't score in this game, I'm going to be kicking myself because my gut instinct was telling me either captain Foden or Mbeumo.
Bears. Yeah, I think we're all going to be looking pretty good at the end of the week. But let's see how it goes. Let's move on to the fixtures and tactical changes. Now, when I'm looking at the fixtures, there are a couple of things that usually stand out. Like first off, we got Arsenal. Now their ownership is pretty high, but in difficult games, I think Arteta will set a very defensive. Saka is back in training. I'm expecting him to start. They'll probably be without Odegaard. They're at home versus Liverpool, but it's away versus Newcastle and Chelsea. And I don't know, man. Like I think people that hold Saka like, I think there'll be a lot of people that hold Saka, but I just don't know if that's the right play. And if you can't afford 2 transfers on that spot, it's probably worth it. But long term, Saka is probably just a really good pick. So I can understand why you'd hold, especially given like the carrot from Gameweek 13 onwards in terms of the fixtures. And looking at Brighton, they have a very difficult run coming up against Liverpool and Man City in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned that thing about Matoma, where I don't think he'll play in Gameweek 12, but Gameweek 13 onwards, it's gorgeous. Someone could be a really good differential at that time. Palace's fixtures, like Starks mentioned earlier, like they've got Man City, they've got Arsenal on the horizon. I don't know if you really want to be holding him through that. And then I think Fulham's fixtures the next couple are very solid. Wolves, of course. We've been talking about Wolves every single week, but that run, oh, it's not even a red fixture there. That's crazy.
I,
So I think Cunha would be a really good pick there, and same with Aiden Nuri, of course.
I do
But
want to
this week
mention
is not a good
something
entry
though,
point.
Kanji. I do think with teams like Ipswich and teams like Wolves, we do need to be careful with how we judge their fixtures. We shouldn't just look at and think it's a green. Like Palace could look at them and say, no, that's a green fixture for us instead, right? and then Brighton
Mm.
could look at and say, no, that's a green fixture for us. So I understand Brighton is defensively weaker, and Wolves definitely can get something, but ultimately Brighton is a superior team, and so I would say Palace too. So with teams like that, we gotta be careful. I'd say for me, the entry point is in game week 11 for the Wolves attackers slash defenders. If I was to go in, I just see them getting something versus maybe Southampton, and then maybe Bournemouth. But look, I wouldn't double triple up on them so soon. I would want to see more.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just the way that Wolves played on the counterattack versus Man City that just gives me the faith to just back their attack. Like Cunha or Larson probably score in this game. Like Brighton has such a high line. But I agree with you, especially for Aiden bro. Like you really want to be starting him in that game, like 11 fixture onwards. Um, yeah, and I think Spurs' fixtures are not that important to Son, but especially for the likes of like Solanke and Brennan. The next couple weeks look good, but what are you going to do in game week 12? Got to make a game plan for that, I'd say. Liverpool fixtures are mixed, you know. It's not really a great run. And Man City have good fixtures and then they're mixed. So, and Man United are the team that really stand out, bro. It's like they got pretty solid fixtures. Garnacho, Bruno, I like those as shouts. So what do you guys think of the fixtures?
I think Everton's fixture run is just insane. But if your strategy is to transfer the enablers, so like your Semenyo's, your McNeil's, I think McNeil is that fixture run. He will tick along in that fixture run. Fulham, Southampton, is that West Ham, Brentford, United,
Yeah, and United and Wolves. It's insane.
Those fixtures are just unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
they're playing well, Everton. They are playing well. That Ndiaye is it Ndiaye?
And
The winger?
Ndiaye is shout out to him. He's really good. And Ndiaye is probably better than DCO actually.
He's
yeah.
yeah, and he looks like a good talent. Where did they sign him from?
I think he's from London, you know. He's from London.
I just don't. Did they sign him this season though? I don't remember him.
I think so this season, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a great little pickup, and if he can stay fit for that run, I just see Everton. I just see all those games being quite end-to-end, entertaining, and yeah, he could tick along.
I might get him, you know. I might get in there for the lap if he starts to struggle. It could be like he's 5.4. Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at Southampton, West Ham, and Brentford, like I want to target those fixtures. I want to target Southampton, West Ham, and Brentford, and Wolves
Why
as
don't you
well.
go
Like
to Why don't you go to Larson though? From
I
Wolves, they
could,
just got better fixtures
yeah.
longer term.
Yeah, I could go Larson as well. Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? I want to see. I'll look at both teams. It could be Larson or it could be NBA. But there are a couple of them. Obviously, you got Raul as well. Shout out to Fulham. They've got very good fixtures. And I want to say one more thing about. We're not talking about enough about the Tottenham fixtures. I do think they're very good. We got Palace, Villa, and Ipswich. I think for attacking, they're very good fixtures.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you guys there.
And I wouldn't sell Son for City. Like I saw Let's Talk FPL say on paper the Man City. What do you mean on paper? Like let's apply some context and actually put our balls on the line and make a decision. That fixture is a good fixture for Son.
Yep.
They're gonna have so much space. It's going to be a great game. Two attacking-minded managers. Son historically has a good record. Spurs have an even better record. They always beat Man City. Always. I don't know how they do it, but they seem to be their kryptonite. And if you watch City without Rodri, that fixture is going to be a let alone FPL. That'll be a good watch for a neutral fan. And I can see both Son and Foden and Haaland all getting in amongst the goals in that game. I don't think it's not a fixture you should look at and think, oh my gosh, they're playing Man City. No, that's a good fixture.
Last thing
I'm with you there, bro.
Last thing I would say, Brentford, Wissa's back, and Mbeumo's there. If you wanted to get piece of the attack, definitely consider Wissa as well as Mbeumo, because Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester, even Villa and Newcastle, it doesn't get any better. So definitely consider those two players. Yeah.
What about Chris Wood though? Like they have a couple of good fixtures here, and then they have like Arsenal, Man City. What would you suggest?
Yeah, I do think if you don't own him, you can consider him. But I do think that I don't know if the ship has sold. Okay, maybe for the next two, he hasn't sold. If you still have the wild card, I'll take a punt on him. But if you don't, I don't think long term, I'm not sure if you want him considering Newcastle, Arsenal, Manchester City, United. Yeah, quite a tough fixtures coming up.
Newcastle is his old team though, I think.
I do think,
Yeah.
Look, he's still a good pick, yeah.
seem to recall Wood scoring a hat trick against Newcastle on Boxing Day.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
he
Yeah,
did.
yeah, he did. He did.
Only
He did. He did.
R9. So um,
Maybe, yeah, maybe
I,
because they sold him,
I,
right? That's
no,
why.
but I think that
Mhm.
you guys have a structure in place. There's a lot of people that have Haaland and 2 budget. So you have like a Haaland, Jimenez, and Wood. I think the
Yeah.
aim of the game is find the best striker / midfielder that rotates with Wood, because in my opinion, I think United, Aston Villa, and Tottenham and City aren't necessarily bad fixtures for Wood on paper, because they're going to sit back, soak up the pressure, and on the transition, Wood is going to be the one who gets played in. They've got Adoy, Elanga on the transition, who are very quick players.
Yeah.
Uh,
It
and
might be
if
a
they
season
ever,
hold for me. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
it could be
He
a road.
might be, yeah. Genuinely.
I don't think on paper they're as bad as what people think.
You're
Tottenham
right.
leaves, Villa leave space behind. Fulham. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one right now. United, Villa, Brentford's not a grey fixture. How is that ever a grey fixture?
Do you know what, Stark? You're getting
Yeah.
too many people. His ownership is going to be now 50%. I was trying to be more neutral. You're not telling everyone. Come on, man. Come on.
I,
Hey, guys, pick Wood, man. Just get Wood, man. It's the best pick. Come on, man. Best budget
I,
fiction. Come on.
I don't even own him. I just think if I had him, I wouldn't sell him. I'd just rotate him with someone who
Yeah,
rotates nice.
guys, you just get him, man. He's good. He's good. He's good for long term. I agree with Stark. Should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it, bro.
Let's
Yeah,
move
so we'll
on.
move on to the team review section. Now, this was my team from last week. It was horrendous. Now, the right move on paper that I should have done was supposed to be Saka to Son, and I would have been up 14 points if I'd made that move. But unfortunately, I went against the advice from my co-host on the pod, and I did my double defensive move. So that costed me. I also fell from 2 mil to 3 mil, but man, I think I would have had like the smallest red arrow if I just made the right move on paper. But that's okay. At this point, like I'm pretty comfortable. At least my captain outscored Holland. Not looking too horrendous. I think there's a lot of time to make up for it, and you can't get everything right every week. So moving on to the next game week for game week 9, my team looks absolutely gorgeous. I love my structure. Like I know I don't have Holland, and he can destroy me this week, but I don't think he'll have very many weeks where he can destroy me. Now, if you're looking on paper, best goalie, 2 best defenders, Rico Lewis and Aiden rotate very well. Then I have Mbumo, Palmer, and Son, which are pretty much season-long holds. Foden is there right now. The captaincy armband is on him. Depends how many minutes he gets in the Champions League. If he gets 70 minutes or less, then I'll probably captain him. But if he plays the full 90, then I'll just captain Mbumo. And then I have Brennan Johnson and Solanke as like my differential punts, and Cunha is there for like the longer term. I could potentially play Calvert-Lewin instead of Cunha, but I really like Fulham, so I'm going to be benching Calvert-Lewin. And yeah, that's what my team looks like, hoping for a green arrow. It's been a while since I've had one.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I just want to give one feedback. I think you have put all your stocks on Spurs. I do think that I
Oh
would
yeah,
have
I mentioned. I
personally,
forgot to mention my transfer. Oh my gosh, like that. Yeah,
yeah,
my transfer was Saka to Son. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Sorry.
yeah, your transfer look. I think it looks good on paper. I mean, there's so much white jerseys. I mean, look, if Spurs get anything, I know you're gonna be eating, and Spurs do be getting a lot of returns recently. Look, I love it. I love the way it looks. The only thing I would say, mate, Solanke, maybe you should reconsider that pick. Come,
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
yeah,
come
yeah,
game week 12, he's the first guy
yeah.
I'm trying to sell. Everyone
Maybe
else looks pretty
exactly, yeah.
solid.
But yeah, otherwise looks amazing, bro. Honestly, I love it.
Yeah, and I would have, considering you have Son, I would definitely look to ship Johnson out for like Garnacho or someone. That's just me. I wouldn't want 3 Spurs players.
Yeah,
Yeah, same. Yep. Should we move on?
fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, let's move on. I think we got Stark next.
Yeah, 15k to 68k. To be honest, I thought it'd be worse. The rank loss, just head loss and rank loss this weekend. Honestly, like, bro, Haaland blanking against Wolves, Solanke missing 2 sitters, but it is what it is. It's a good week to have a bad week, to be honest. So moving on, Maddison. To be honest, actually, one thing I want to say is Maddison getting hooked at halftime is just shocking, absolutely shocking. But my game week 9 team selection, I'm choosing to start. I've got a decision to make in terms of Leif Davis versus Robinson. It's either Mbumo punishes Davis or Robinson punishes Calvert-Lewin, vice versa. But I've chose to start Robinson due to the fact that they tend to have a lot of low-scoring games historically. I'm hoping that changes this weekend, but if I looked at the head-to-heads and there's a lot of 0-0s, 1-0s, 0-0s, 1-0s, so hopefully, or not hopefully, it's just if DCL blanks, which I think he's going to do because he can't hit a barn door, at least I've got Rob who can maybe get a clean sheet and recover that. So, and I'm choosing to start Semenyo ahead of Rodgers. I think Rodgers is playing unreal, but my gut's telling me that Bournemouth are going to find joy against the high line. So, yeah, that's my team.
One thing I want to mention, there's a graphical mistake. It should be Gameweek 9 team selection, guys. Apologies. And the feedback, I'd say, look, I think Madison was a good pick on paper. I really loved him as a pick. I did not expect him to get hooked at halftime. I think that if he stayed for another half, he would have generally got a double-digit return. And in regards to Semenyo and Rodgers, I'm in the same dilemma. Can you elaborate a bit more there might be some people in a similar situation, why you think, I understand you explained it, but a bit more reasons as to why you think Semenyo over Rodgers?
Rodgers played 90 minutes in the Champions League, and I believe that in the last game they played Fulham. No, that was United, and Rodgers got an early sub. Was it before the international break? And that was when they played Bayern Munich. And they didn't look amazing against Manchester United in that game after the Champions League game. And the Champions League games do take it out of you, especially Villa are a new team to the Champions League. Historically, they've got European heritage, but recently they've been out of the competition for a long time. And in my opinion, they've overachieved with the squad they've got. So I just think he played 90 minutes. He might get an early sub because you can't expect someone who had an injury really bad last season to get 90 minutes back to back to back like that. And I just think confidence is high on Bournemouth. They just beat Arsenal. I think they're going to find joy against Villa's high line. I think Semenyo in particular is going to get big chances, and I'm just hoping that he can take one or two of them.
Fair enough. I like the teammate, honestly. I love the Mbeumo pick. I'm glad you got him in. In terms of Davies and Robinson, yeah, I'll probably pick Robinson. But yeah, overall looks good. Let's
To
move
be,
on to go on.
to be honest, I might just start Rodgers with Calvert-Lewin because I hate the donkey that much. So
Yeah, I would say I would do that actually personally. Yeah, I'll probably start Rodgers or ahead of Calvert-Lewin. Definitely. Yeah, no
Nah,
brainer, mate.
I wouldn't do that. Nah, don't do it, bro. Just in
and
case. I mean, you have like the Robinson like counteracting. It's like a hedge. Up to you, bro.
yeah, and lastly, I am gonna watch the highlights of the City game and see how Foden and Haaland operate with each other, and potentially give Foden the armband. And maybe if I don't like what I see, just honestly go with Mbeumo because I think Ipswich are shocking, and I think Mbeumo can definitely at least get one return. I can't afford these blanks. Like it's not in your top 100k. You can't afford to captain blank players.
Agreed.
Yeah, and they do, and Ipswich have a zonal weakness on Mbumo's side because Leif Davis likes to push forward, so Mbumo will be there to take advantage of the space that's left. So, good shout.
Yeah, good shot. Moving on, my Gameweek 8 review. I'm still in the 8K. I don't know how. Kept Salah. I think that's the main reason why I've been talking about him, keeping him. People said to sell him everywhere, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. But look, this is why you gotta watch the Roundtable FPL, right? Um, Salah return, Rodgers return, and the main man Wood absolutely carried me to the game week, and just about managed to retain my rank. So thankfully, even though Saka wasn't playing, Simeone came for 2 points. Quite happy with that. But yeah, let's move on to my Gameweek 9 team selection. So we're lining up with Sanchez, obviously Lewis, Gabriel, Konate, good backline with Mbeumo, Palmer, Rodgers, and Salah, and obviously Delap, Haaland, and Wood. To be honest, as Stark said, the captain usually could be Palmer or Salah, or it could be Mbeumo. Haaland, I'm not too convinced. I do want to watch the Champions League game, before I decide. But yeah, overall, I'm quite happy with this team. Any thoughts, guys?
No, no thoughts for me. It's a good team. That's why you're 8K. You've got the threemium of dreams.
Yep, let's hope I can maintain
Yeah,
these. Just wanted to mention one thing. Actually, I did make a transfer, two transfers. I did bring in Palmer for Saka, and I took out Mikalenko for Burgess in order to fund the premium, which I think on paper are the best three premium assets in the game. And this does set me up for long term up into game week 12, where I could make a significant change in my structure depending on Haaland's form.
Do you have
Yeah, if you keep Haaland in your structure, I think you should just keep Wood. I think both of those guys could easily just be season keepers for you if you decide to keep Haaland.
Yep.
And then just spend your transfers on Delap spot, and then I think you'd be fine.
like, or yeah, I think Raul Jimenez is definitely the one to replace Delap if you've got the money.
Yeah, I'll probably think about that one. Yeah. All right.
100%.
I
All
think
right,
that's it.
boys. Yo, this was
Yeah.
a wonderful pod. Was there any extra questions that we had missed potentially?
No, I think we covered it, to be honest. Most of the questions is covered. Thanks everyone for tuning in, actually.
Yeah, 100%. Yo, I absolutely love doing the pods with you guys, by the way. Thanks so much for spending the time. Like, I even learned so much when I do the pods with you guys, man. I loved it so much.
Same.
Yeah, it's great fun, and obviously we will be doing some spaces later on.
Tune in.
On Friday, or maybe tomorrow, or the weekend for sure. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, boys. Thanks so much for the time, and I guess we'll catch up next week, man. Take care.